I'm really happy about welcoming you to the third part of the four-part AI in IT series. So the first part, we started looking at the recent trends in AI for IT management, and then we started a day with AI in security and endpoint management. And today we are here in step three, which is all about AI in monitoring. So I will give you a good view on how we in Manage Engine shipped AI for monitoring, and what were the lessons we learned, and what are the general steps to help get you started in deploying AI in your monitoring suite. So I'm Ram Prakash, like you would have known by now. I have been working with Zoho Corp over the last decade, and currently I work for a part of the group called Zoho Labs, where we do a lot of research on AI, blockchain, databases, hardware acceleration, and so on. So Zoho Corporation Private Limited is broadly three divisions: Zoho.com, Manage Engine, and WebNMS. Zoho.com is our cloud business and productivity suite. We have 45 plus business apps, everything from CRM to recruitment tool to attendance management, payroll, and things like that. WebNMS is our IoT division, and this webinar is presented to you by Manage Engine, our IT management division. So these are the wide variety of tools that Manage Engine offers, everything from endpoint management, IT security, service delivery, identity and access management, analytics, and monitoring. So today we'll be focusing on the things within that box. So you can see that we're going to talk about monitoring and operations management, where AIOps is also listed there as well. The term AIOps has been used a lot in the last couple of years. So we'll be demystifying what AIOps is all about, and how do we get AI deployed, because Manage Engine offers 90 plus tools, and they are available on a wide variety of hosting styles. For example, you can host it on premises, you can host it on your rented public service cloud, or you can get a hosted deployment from us. So that said, this also comes with a lot of challenges in getting AI to work. For example, you could have a hybrid model of working, and there can be an on-premises setup where the compute power is very less. So a lot of things which we discussed in the first episode. But anyway, I'll refresh the basics as we go. Right. So the first episode, we started off with how to get AI working in your IT management setup. What are the unique challenges that IT management holds for getting into AI? We saw challenges like very limited amount of training data, quality of data available, the quality of processing power that is available to get AI working, maintaining your pipelines in such a way that your entire traditional IT system becomes the new age AI ready. We talked about retrofitting AI into our existing ID processes, bringing in a probabilistic notion. We also saw a couple of stories where we talked about this beautiful horse from Germany, the clever Hans, who was actually able to do a lot of computation by just looking at correlation, by looking at people's eyes, and he was able to answer a lot of mathematical questions. But apparently, when his eyesight was cut off and his vision was tied, he was not able to answer because he didn't really pass it. So we came to the conclusion that today's AI is so much of correlation than causation, and why it has to move towards the direction of causation to make things better. And then the second week, we talked about AI in endpoint and security management. We talked about how people are going to be the weakest link in an organization's security process and how to get there. We talked about new styles of authenticating users, new style of validating if that particular user is a user or a bot, things like CAPTCHA, things like adaptive authentication, things like user and entity behavior analysis, where you don't have to explicitly configure rules, and a lot of that. And we had a couple of questions as well regards to helping with the compliance process while deploying AI in IT. And both of the discussions were very good, and we had a lot of questions. So thank you again for coming in today. So feel free to shoot your questions in the questions tab in case you have connectivity issues. A refresh should help most of the times, or my like Anna had told you, I mean, we have a lot of details in the handout section as well. Right, so let us dive into today's focus. Today's focus will be to deploy AI in monitoring. So monitoring has been there is a term for it. It's called AIOps, right? So AIOps, using AI to help set up your operations is called AIOps. And if you look at it, AI has been widely used in the monitoring world. In fact, into IT, monitoring was the first place where AI got entered, or AI came in and helped set up beautiful processes around it. So monitoring is actually a very right place for deploying your AI practices, because one, it is a wealth of data, right? So in the process of monitoring, all you do is you collect a wealth of data, and then you have it stored back, and then you take reports out of it, you make those details searchable. So you crunch, as time pass, you aggregate data over time. And so basically your monitoring process ends up in a data warehouse, and where AI has a lot of potential when you have a lot of data. So you can take a lot of actions via the collected data. That is where we see AI in monitoring. We'll see the step-by-step process to get AI into your IT process. And AIOps is a fancy term of using AI in monitoring. So I'll not be using the term AIOps much, because AIOps is it's a widely used marketing term. But today we're going to cover the little steps you can take to get AI into your everyday monitoring process. Right? So here is a stat: 40% of organizations expected to have strategically implemented an algorithmic AIOps IT operations platform to enhance performance monitoring by 2022. Now, this stat is a 2019 stat. Now that digitization has accelerated because of the pandemic, we see a lot of positive change. So a lot of organizations are going to use AIOps for their operations, and AIOps is going to become mainstream. We will see how to go about it. Right? So like I said, we talked about this in security, where security has always been very rules driven. And then we also talked about traditional intelligence, where the word intelligence has been widely used in our IT process, where you do some scheduled function calls, you have triggers where some action happens, and at the end a function is automatically triggered. So like I said, traditionally monitoring has been very, very, very rule dominant, like security, where example, your alert thresholds. If a particular monitor, let's say if a particular database server has slower performance over the last 5 minutes, then throw me an alert, and so on. Right? So it has been very rule dominant. And if you see traditionally, this rule involves a sliding window, or it involves a count where, let's say, you have 10 error occurrence when you monitor a particular behavior, or for the last continuous amount of time, if so many number of events have happened. Let's say if you have 10 server restarts in the last 1 hour, then probably something is wrong in that server. So the word intelligence has been used for things like these. But with AI coming in, where AI is generally, again, I'll redefine it. Basically, it looks at your past data and then decides on what to do with the current data. Right? So AI is very past data oriented, meaning if you don't have a particular style of training data, then your AI system might not be able to capture it, especially when you're using a supervised AI model. Right? So like I said, in security, monitoring is also very rule dominant, and so we'll see how to help change the fact that it is rule dominant with AI. Before we get into it, we'll have a quick poll right here. Okay, so one interesting behavior with monitoring is the fact that as long as you monitor a single time versus value field, let's say time versus your website's performance, time versus your cache's memory, time versus your write requests into your database, and so on. Right? So, but if you look at today's IT process, it has been a mixture of so many things, especially with cloud computing power available on tap. Scaling up, scaling down happens in minutes. Your IT monitoring data is an ensemble of different metrics, right? For the same time instant, you can have several different metrics that means several different things. And these internal metrics are correlated heavily. For example, one can causate another. Let's say your website's response time is increasing. It's because your database server load is increasing. Right? Your website response time is decreasing because you have added more number of servers. So some entities can be directly correlated, some entities can be inversely correlated, one can causate another, or there can be cases where you don't know the real causation. Remember, we talked about, when talking about causation, we talked about this problem where there is a paradox on who is causating who. Example, when there are more number of entities. The example we talked about back then was you have a sprinkler and your lawn is wet and it is raining, right? So you can actually conclude that the lawn is wet because your sprinkler is on. So that means it is not raining, right? And you can also say the sprinkler is off, so that means it is raining because my lawn is wet. But ultimately, it can also be because your lawn is wet, the sprinkler is on, and it is also raining, right? So there can be so many combinations to this. So this is traditionally called the Simpsons paradox. So ultimately, we have a lot of things affecting a lot of things. Sometimes there is very little knowledge on how the chain of events happens, what happened first, or what happened is how is it affecting the other parameter can be open to interpretations, right? So this is where AI comes in, because it houses a powerful multi-dimensional technique where your human correlation can correlate a maximum of 2 to 3 variables, but when you have a higher dimensional correlation that is necessary, that is where the power of statistical machine learning can come in and help you. Right. So I have structured my presentation today this way: the future, present, and the past. Right. I have actually highlighted past because AI is heavily dependent on the past. So that means AI should be able to have a very good view on the past data, but apparently that's not going to be the case. We are going to walk you through that. So we'll start off with future, how AI is going to help identify the future in monitoring, and how AI can help you at your present process in monitoring, and how AI can give you insights about the past when you need it. Right? So we'll start off with future. Any interesting monitoring setup can actually tell you what is holding for the future, right? So it can be just forecasting a particular quantum. Let's say you have a time versus value field, and you can just forecast and say, okay, what is going to mean by my response time 2 weeks from now? What is going to be my response time on Christmas Eve? Or again, the question can be reversed: how many servers do I need to maintain this particular response time just before a vacation, in case you are doing consumer business, or in case it is enterprise, how many servers do I actually cut down, because during the vacation period my traffic is going to be lean. And you can also forecast future events. Think of something like an outage, or think of something like a trouble. Now, if that can be that can be alerted much in advance, so that you can take the necessary precautions, or even you can prevent the event from happening at all. So the first part, we are going to see about how AI is going to help you in identifying events that are going to happen in the future. So, okay. So this is a screenshot from Site 24/7, the network and product monitoring suite, which is available on demand. You can see that here we are forecasting disk usage, and we see that when will the disk reach some 35% capacity, and we can also see that it is happening after 7 days. So here you look at your past disk usage, and the good thing about, or the difficult thing about monitoring is that certain things are good when high, certain things are good when low. For example, your free disk space is good when it's high, but your response time is good when it's low, right? So you will have to, your AI systems can actually learn without you explicitly configuring that which is what. So this has to be low. How are they correlated? When you have like 10 different variables, how are each correlated with, for example, a higher free disk space might mean lower response time, so they're inversely correlated. But a higher CPU usage might mean higher web response time, which is directly correlated, right? So, and now if you look at the higher CPU utilization versus lower disk utility, then there is a problem, right? Like I was telling you, the chain of events that can actually cause it incidents, and by looking at your past data. So now what has this algorithm imbibed? It has looked at your past disk usage. Like I said, it's going to be your traditional monitoring is going to be very rule based. So you can write a rule saying whenever my disk reaches more than 50%, then alert me. My disk usage capacity reaches more than 50%, then throw me an alert. But all of a sudden you see it on a Thursday and it's only 25%. But in let's say on Friday you have a lot of impact, and your Saturday morning it throws in an alert saying your disk is 50% full, right? This is because it has been very traditionally rule-driven thing. But your AI systems can bring in a lot of seasonal and trend factoring in, and which can tell you this is the expected behavior on a Friday morning, so I will account for it accordingly. And this is the expected behavior on Saturdays because there is no particular activity happening in this enterprise business setup, and so on. Right? So we'll see more screenshots. Again, this is again from Site 24/7, the monitoring tool. You can see that we are forecasting swap usage here. Now you can see that the swap usage is apparently going down in megabytes, and this is for the last 12-hour data set. Right, and here we are looking at Op Manager, which is an operations manager on-premise tool. You see that the prediction rules have been set up. This again for the same disk forecast. We have been looking at the disk forecast over time, and we see that when would the disk reach 80%, when would the disk reach 90%, when would the disk reach 100%. Now, when you have a powerful forecasting algorithm like this, you can actually query it in a lot of different ways. For example, like this is one way of querying, right? The other case we saw was when will it reach so much percentage? But here you are giving me the percentage and asking by when would I be able to reach the certain threshold, right? There are two ways, right? By when would I reach, or on a given day, what would be the value of this particular entity I am monitoring, right? So basically, your most of your events that you monitor would be crunched into smaller numbers, and even series, even chains, and so on. So it becomes analytically very easy. That's why I said monitoring is like very ripe for AI adoption. It is very easy to throw AI into monitoring. That is why the term AI ops has been spreading. Unlike security, let's say for security, you probably don't have past patterns of an abnormal behavior, or you probably don't have all past patterns of a particular abnormal behavior. So that makes AI a bit difficult to get into security. That makes AI a bit difficult to get around the real rule-based threshold setting policy there. But in monitoring, things look a bit easier because, again, you have a wealth of data. Most of it is crunched or compressed into events, beautiful numbers where you can let loose your statistical techniques on to arrive at good results and forecasts, right? You also have long-term prediction here. Remember the first presentation we are talking about how AI has very little dependence in IT because you have very limited data storage. So you probably, the average data retention period we see in our IT suite of products are about 4 weeks, which is about a month. But your algorithms have to be smart enough to make sure even with just 4 weeks of actual data, by learning over a period of time, we should be able to forecast up to 2 years. Now, here is a dashboard you see where this is again from App Manager, which is an on-premise monitoring suite, where we are looking at the growth trend. And so think about it. You can actually forecast the number of servers you need. You can forecast your visitors and say, okay, for 100 visitors, I need a dedicated web server. I need one more machine added to my database cluster, and so on. Right now, if you can predict or forecast the number of users coming in, then apparently you can forecast your hardware requirements accordingly. And given when seasonality factor comes in, when your trend factor comes in, you might know how exactly how many number of systems can I deploy at this point in time so that my expected SLA of response time is reached, right? So it is a lot of complex math, but again, all of it is at your disposal by using powerful AI techniques. And the fact that all of these happen on-premise, it means that the algorithms are very frugal. They work with limited amounts of data. They work with limited amounts of computing power. And you can also interestingly see that necessarily forecasting algorithms need to be very adaptive to your data, because let's say your something like your disk usage can have a lot of ups and downs, but something like your web response time is going to be really standard. Really, the curve is just going to move sideways if on a normal day, right? Unless and until there is an event or there is an outage that is potentially occurring, then your graph doesn't much vary. So sometimes there's a lot of variance in your data. Sometimes, like the number of visitors that are coming in every hour, it may vary depending on the kind of service you offer. But certain things are very static. Your model has to combine these into a single metric for you to have a beautiful understanding of how your system works. Right? So this again is from NetFlow Analyzer, an on-premise product that analyzes your flow packets and gives you reports and alerts, and helps you search through flow packets and so on. Now you can see that the pattern in which the machine has forecasted, in which the AI algorithm has actually forecasted. You can see that you are forecasting it for the next 7 days. It is about the speed of the incoming flow packets, and you can see that there is a shape that is there in your original data, right? In your inflow packets and outflow packets, which are in orange and blue color respectively. You can see that there is a shape which is an M-like shape, and you can see that the forecasting algorithm exactly draws the lines in a very clear fashion, so that that is the accuracy of the algorithm. That is how reliable it is. You can see that it has learned the trend and seasonal patterns out of it. So we have a lot of patterns like this. Sometimes there are no seasons, but there is a trend. Things are constantly moving. Let's say you're actually mapping the input number of users to your website, and you can see that your website traffic is growing at 10% every year. Then your system has to factor that 10% eventually, right? So, and that 10% might not be even. On Fridays, your traffic can be 20% up. On Mondays, it can be 5% down. On Wednesdays, it can be 10% up. On an aggregate, you can see that overall you're growing at 10%, right? It has to, when you forecast it at a weekly level, then it has to tell you that Friday's traffic is high, Monday's traffic is low, and so on. But when you forecast it at a monthly level, you see that it is growing at 10% and it has to forecast accordingly, right? So this could look like very simple forecasting techniques, but the fact that it is this accurate is because it is powered by AI, because it is surfing through a lot of data by looking at your past data. It is trying to, unlike a traditional forecasting pattern where it just looks through the last recent points and then gives you an estimate of, that has been the traditional statistical forecasting. But here you combine the power of the past data along with the algorithm to give you better forecasted results. Like I said, inferring patterns can be tough. When zoomed in at a weekly level, it is something different. When zoomed out at a monthly level, it is something different. When zoomed out at a quarter level, it is even more different, right? So your data behaves differently when you zoom it at different intervals of time. Now, all of that patterns have to be captured. When I want a daily forecast, my hour of the day is important. When I want a weekly forecast, my hour of the day is negligible. But my day of the week is very important, right? When I want a quarterly forecast, the month of the quarter becomes very important. When I want a yearly, and so on, right? You get it, right? So your patterns can behave differently depending on where you zoom, depending on how you have captured the data. And there are also certain cases where the data capturing interval itself is different, right? So for example, your web response time, you probably measure it once in every 5 minutes, right? Your active visitors, you measure once in 10 minutes, right? So now one can give you the variability of your data in a 5-minute interval, but the other can give you in a 10-minute interval. Now think about it. You're monitoring your Redis cache, you're monitoring your caching system versus you're monitoring your distributed file store system, right? Your distributed file store is always in the back end of things, but your caching is like in front. So you most likely have a higher monitoring interval for your distributed file system, and you have a really smaller monitoring interval where your response times of the caching system is monitored very easily, very frequently, and then it is pushed to you. Now you will have to make sure you bring all of these to a level playing field, so that your algorithm, when it feeds the data, it knows that these are done at the same intervals of time. You do some aggregation, or there are cases where let's say some data points are captured at very huge intervals where a lot of things are approximated, and then the forecasting is done, right? So that is all about the future, where AI can really help and do a monitoring forecast and see how well it behaves. Now, interestingly, it opens a lot of avenues. You can actually go about predicting outages, right? So you can see that, let's say your web response time is shooting up in the next 2 hours. You see that it's going to hit some unacceptable number. So you can start mending your things early, because you can forecast and probably look into the past and then see. Now, there are a lot of techniques, like I said. One is by looking at numbers, another is by looking at a series of events, and so on. Right. Now, let us come back to how your AI system can help you make decisions at present. Right. So this is going to be reporting a lot of anomalies and normalizing a lot of alerts. So let's see what that is. Right. So here is again a screenshot from Site 24/7, the monitoring suite. You can see that the page load time has surged to 32K, which is an 1.3 times increase. The baseline, it also tells you that this is the value I expected. And you can see that the anomaly is confirmed, right? So there is a severity of the anomaly that is given so that you can act accordingly. If you remember right, in the first episode, we were talking about human in the loop. We are talking about where this the story in Russia or the story in London, where a DDoS attack was stopped. It was the monitoring system actually considered it to be a DDoS attack, but actually people were trying to panic shop just before the pandemic, right? So, and then in Russia, where there was an auto missile response system, and the person who was monitoring it understood that it was a false alarm, and he stopped the response missile from being fired, right? So to aid such things, we also have an explanation where okay, something is wrong, something is anomalous. Again, like I said, this anomaly also factors in the time aspect. For example, the number of failed logins. The same example we saw in security, the number of failed logins per hour on a Monday morning, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. is like 10 failed logins per minute per hour is acceptable. But the same thing happens on a Saturday morning, 3 a.m. Then something fishy is going on, right? So the same way, let's say you have a really peak season for your website. For example, you're doing your Black Friday sale, then apparently your response time is expected to be deteriorated. But you know that during a holiday sale, this is bound to happen, so it is okay. It is still acceptable. Let's say a response time of 30 seconds is acceptable because a lot of people are crowding your website to purchase things and so on. But ultimately, a bad response time throughout or overall is really going to have a bad impression, and it's going to bring you some loss in business, because today slow is the new down, right? So ultimately, I don't want to buy something on a very unreliable website or a really slow website. I can take my business elsewhere. So your quality of digital offerings has a direct correlation with your business, so you better do it right. So here is an example where you can see if a particular metric is anomalous at a given point in time, given all your past data and the patterns in it. And you can see a lot of event analytics here, where again, this dashboard is from Site 24/7, where you're looking at all the events that happened. All of the forecasting events which we saw were talking about numbers, but here you can see that a series of events have happened. There's an agent upgrade, a job has failed, and so on. You actually chain these events together to arrive at conclusions. And there need to be multivariate anomaly models, like we were telling. Let's say you're doing web response time over a period of time. You're comparing your response time over, let's say, every hour. You're doing it once every hour. You're comparing it with Monday morning 9 a.m. with Sunday morning 9 a.m., Sunday morning 9 a.m., Saturday morning 9 a.m., and so on. But apparently, let's say you are monitoring a lot of things. For example, you're not just monitoring your website's response time, but instead you're monitoring your CPU clusters, CPU usage, right? Your server clusters, CPU usage, your server clusters, available memory, your database clusters, CPU usage, your database clusters, caching space available, and so on. So you have like 10 different metrics that are being computed for a given instance of time, and you need to know if that is anomalous or not, right? Sometimes one metric individually might be an anomaly, right? But the combinatorial metric is not really an anomaly. For example, you can see that CPU at 70% might not be an anomaly in most cases, but CPU at 70%, free disk space at 5%, and RAM usage, memory usage at 75%, this is going to be a combinatorial anomaly, right? So there can be many cases like this, and apparently you can see that two variables are an anomaly when they are high, but your free disk space is an anomaly when it is low, right? So there can be multiple combinations like these, and you need not explicitly configure that this has to be high for it to be good, this has to be low for it to be bad. And there are certain things which are bad when they are high and when they are low. They'll have to be in the normal amounts, they'll have to be in the specified range for it to think of something like voltage, right? So you're measuring your input current and you see that it is high or low, then both of it is bad, right? It has to be in the ideal range, plus or minus 5, plus or minus 10 volts for it to work, right? So each of the metric can have its own story, and then you do a combinatorial calculation over it, then that metric could have a very different story, right? So this is where you compulsively need explanations, where you will have to tell me which particular combination made me mark this particular row as an anomaly, right? So, or sometimes it can be due to solely one event where your free disk space is 1%. Right? So irrespective of what the other metrics are, even though they are all right, this particular row is clearly a mark of an anomaly. And the need for explanations also gets compounded by the fact that most of the times there are teams that are going to take decisions on the decision made by your AI system. For example, I remember us talking about it in the first episode, where let's say your monitoring system is predicting that there is a 80% chance of outage, right? So then the stakeholders involved here are your networking team, your product team, your marketing team, which takes care of social media feed and so on, right? So now when it is 80%, it is okay for your social media feed team to go and update the social media feed saying we are facing disruptions in our operations. You might have bad experience for a while, but rest assured we are fixing it and so on, right? So you can actually talk about it to your customers, you can acknowledge that there is an issue and you're working on it. But think about it, there's only a 60% chance of outage, right? So in this case, and you probably know that the network parameters are very weird. So it's okay if you just alert the networking team to come and see what has happened, and it probably may not even reach the social media team. They needn't really do any update on how things are going. And as the monitoring tools grow, you can also get a bigger picture, right? So for example, let's say some ISP is down in some part of the country, right? So let's say the East Coast is facing a network outage. So all websites in this place or all services hosted on this particular service providers are down, right? You need not necessarily have that intelligence, right? So in spite of you not doing anything, all of the systems are fine, but one particular region, people are not able to access your websites. So now as monitoring tools get powerful, they will be able to chart out such information for you as well by scraping the web, telling you, hey, a lot of sites in this region are facing a problem, and it is not just you. It is probably because an ISP is down, or a hosting provider is down, or a DNS service provider is down, and so on, right? So explanations can come in than an AI just blindly telling you there's a 60% chance of outage. It also has to tell you why that 60% came in, or how that 60% came in, what is going to contribute to that 60% of outage, so that the corresponding teams can be involved, because it's not an individual that's going to take a decision. It's going to be a bunch of people working in different teams that will come together and sort out that issue. So, right. So you can also see that the idea of dynamic thresholding, like I said, it is very rule dominant. So you would have configured static thresholds, but you need to have dynamic thresholds that take in the factor of trend and seasonality, so that it can alert you accordingly. Like I said, response time during the time of a peak sale, the response time SLAs are pretty high, but on a normal day, the same SLA is not acceptable. Right, so your monitoring tool should should actually take a note of such events, and then tell you if that particular thing is an anomaly or not at the current moment. So again, we are talking about present now. We talked about future, where we looked at outage prediction, forecasting events, forecasting numbers, and so on. Right. And one thing with modern monitoring systems are the fact that there's a lot of data, right? So there are a lot of combinations of data, and you can see that it is really tough to get through the UI, retrieve the necessary information you want. And even though you might have specific dashboards, now let's say you need a specific piece of information, it is really difficult to dig in and find out the right piece of information, the right set of metrics on which you wanted. For example, your answer might not be a single metric, it can be a combination of a lot of things. So intuitive information retrieval is also being enabled by AI, especially through conversational interface. Here you can see this is from MS Teams integration of Site 24/7. You can see that somebody is getting a root cause analysis of a particular customer monitor, and you can also ask questions about outages that happened yesterday. Now, if you break down this conversational analysis, first there is something that takes care of the time part, because especially in all of the monitoring systems, time is your primary search constraint, right? So whenever you have a monitoring tool, you will see that your date range is fixed. You can go edit it. So everything is time bound. Any system any monitoring entity you query is always time bound. You ask for the last 100 events or the events that happened in the last 2 hours and so on. So it differs, right? So the first step is to have a very powerful natural language technique that understands the time event you're talking about, right? So here, yesterday could mean different at different points of time. I can ask any outages yesterday at 11:59 p.m. The query is different. Any outages yesterday at 12:01 a.m. Now that is going to be different, right? So and there can be entities as well. So for example, you have networks. Let's say you have named your monitors like DB monitor 1, DB monitor 2. Now I can say, when was the last time DB monitor was down? So now the system has to present me the list of DB monitor -star, right? What are all the DB monitor others available, and it has to confirm which entity I'm talking about. So generally, we also create an interpretation of how things are going to, how the conversational AI has understood what the user has asked. And there is also a corresponding future action as well. Now, for example, if you look at the get RCA of customer screenshot, you will see that the system actually tells you that the next good thing would be to raise a ticket in service desk plus, because the root cause analysis says the system is unavailable, right? So it also recommends you the next best course of action so that you can hold your IT process in a good pipeline, right? So now coming to the last part of the presentation, the past, right? So AI learns from the past. It gives you insights in the present about anomalies, and then it also forecasts your future about potential red events, potential negative events like outage, or it can tell you what a potential metric would look like over the future, right? So now we are coming back to past. Right? So sometimes it looks obvious, okay, AI is trained on the data from the past, so the past is very easy. But actually, the past turns out to be very difficult. Right? So the past works when we are trying to causate events, when you're trying to do a root cause analysis on why a particular outage has happened. Right? So again, here is a screenshot from Site 24/7. You can see actually all 3 cases here. Right? So the first one, noise reduced, is your present. Right? So it looks at all your alerts that are coming in, like the same thing we saw in security, where you merge all of these alerts into beautiful summaries so that you don't have a flood of alerts to look into when you want some information, right? And you can see the recommendations. Again, these recommendations are by looking at your knowledge base. This is again about the future. So how well should you do? What all should you tweak to get back to normal? Or the fact that what is normal at that particular point of time itself is decided by the seasonality and the trend factor of your AI model, right? And in the center you have the detected root cause, right? And you're able to give it with a 98% confidence. The noise reduced, it says that it has a 91% reduction rate, and so on, right? So you can also have recommendations by configuring your automations. So most of the times in IT, we have seen people don't like fully automatic remediations where the system supersedes the human and takes some decisions and that is totally acknowledged. We understand that it cannot be totally on autopilot, but we strongly advocate the human in the loop style, where a lot of things, especially the right actions, happen only the read and write I'm talking about. The right actions happen only after the human has authorized it. So all our AI systems are designed in such a way that it has a human in the loop and properly explained, so that you can take the best course of action. Now, you can see that the detected root cause is about looking at your past. Now, you know an outage has happened. Okay, case one, there can be an outage that can happen, and you say, find the root cause for me, right? So it looks at all previous outages that have happened and their corresponding root causes, right? Now, let's say there has been no similar, let's say this is the first time your database server is facing an outage, and you definitely don't have past patterns on how it happened. So ideally, how it looks at is, it looks at a series of trouble events over the past, and not just all the normal event. It just looks wherever trouble happened, and it potentially points to a place where the trouble started coming in, right? So that is how root cause analysis works. Again, like I said, the most and biggest challenge is going to be the incident formation, where you never know. Should you be constantly scrubbing your past data to see if there are any current incidents? There can be some incidents that happen really slowly. They can happen like over a period of 2 weeks. Your response time will not have a drastic increase at all, but it will increase by 0.1 every day. And apparently by the end of the third week, it comes to something unacceptable. It inches very slowly. And then sometimes there can be events that happen in like seconds. 2 seconds, your response time shoots from 2 milliseconds to 200 milliseconds, and your system is gone dead, right? So the idea of formulating incidents, so by actually, it again is an ensemble of your past, present, and the future, where by you look at your past patterns and you see what the current numbers are, and you know if that is potentially leading to an outage, then you also need to find the source of the trouble, right? You need to narrow down to the starting point of your issue, and alert or identify that this is the source of the problem, and that will be of a great value add. Now, if you see that here, we also give a confidence rate that there is a 98% accuracy of the detected root cause. Now, your confidence increases when you have seen similar instances in the past. For example, I have seen like almost every week it happens where our web server CPU increases and our response time also increases, right? But now there can be a case where the caching system's free space has actually gone down, but that is something I have never seen. But the caching system's memory going down is an alert, right? That is going to be the root cause. It is still a troublesome event that has caused your website's outage, right? So a lot of patterns for forming incidents, and so we're entering the last section of our presentation today, and you can see that monitoring has a right chance for getting AI because it sits in the intersection of IT process, right? So be it security, be it service delivery, your monitoring could be a place where you can see things first, right? Your external behavior of your system, your internal metrics, how are they performing, etc. Any potential problem in your whole IT process, the first blip comes in via your monitoring tool, right? So, and then you go and check your security thing for logs and see how exactly that happened. And then, like when an incident happens, you raise it to the service desk. So, in the chain IT process, monitoring is at the center of decision making. It is a place where things start. So, it is much better equipped to get AI into IT. So, if you're actually looking at places to get AI working, if you want to get used to an AI-enabled IT process, then I would strongly recommend monitoring to be the first place you start with, because one, lot of cases work very well since it is a lot of numbers, and since it is traditionally data storage and crunching, so your processes really work very well in the first attempt in monitoring. And again, it is a feeder to service delivery. It is also a tipping point to look into your security system. So generally your monitoring or your AI process erodes all data boundaries. So it gets a much clearer picture of your IT when it looks at your monitoring process. And then from there, it expands to now, let's say you forecast a potential outage, you push that as a service delivery ticket. You also attach the root cause, and who is the specialist rep in your organization that takes care of outages of this fashion, right? And then it assigns it to him via the service delivery, right? And the root cause could potentially be in your security module, where you see that a lot of users, a lot of bot traffic is coming in, a lot of DDoS attack is happening. So that is the reason for the spike in the number of users coming in. That is also the reason for the spike in your response time, right? So you can efficiently put IT on autopilot with AI when you start getting AI into your monitoring role, right? So see you on Thursday for the service delivery component. We did talk about the security and endpoint. We talked about monitoring component today, and so we'll talk about the service delivery component, which again is very different from what we talked about in service delivery and in monitoring and security, because service delivery is a lot of natural language processing. It involves a lot of human interchange, whereas your monitoring and security were a lot of machine interface. So we'll see how different it is, where to get started, and so on. So before we go back, I will take a couple of questions here. So please feel free to poll in your questions via the poll section. What is the false positive rate of AI trained for forecasting? Well, okay. So the false positive rates, especially when it comes to IT, there's a lot of false positive rates initially, right? So your model has to be deployed for a while to help understand the in and out of the system, to help understand the seasonal factors, to help understand the trend factors. So we generally recommend, let's say you're looking at weekly accuracy of data, we actually recommend at least 2 episodes of that to happen. For example, there's a pattern at a Monday morning 9 a.m. Then we strongly recommend, like even our products have a prompt saying this might not really be alert. This might not really be valid because your system hasn't seen enough data. But from the 3rd episode, the system gets much better. Like traditionally, that's how AI systems have been working. And so initially, the false positive rates can be a bit high. The algorithms are particularly tuned in such a way that false positive rates have to be reduced, because you'll have to find the signal against the lot of noise that is there. So we are particularly tuned. Okay, I see another question here. Do all AI features work on on-premises platform? Yes, absolutely. So as long as monitoring and security are concerned, and even service delivery, all of Manage Engine's features available today are on-premise compatible. There can be a few cases where we are yet to launch the on-premise version, but as on date, nothing has been tuned to run on special hardware, so they are all very on-premise friendly. All right, so I think that's it for the day.